Hello, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. This is absolutely wonderful for us to be here today and for 92Disrupt to be talking about something that I think I've been struggling to address people with and to talk to people about for the past 12 years since I've been in Pakistan, that we need to take care of mental health issues upstream before pathology happens. And I have some absolutely amazing panelists here, and we are just waiting on one more. Sameer, he'll join us. But we just thought that we'll go ahead and get started on talking about this. My name is Ayesha Mian. I'm a psychiatrist, child adolescent psychiatrist. I do a lot of work in advocacy, policy, and just pretty much anyone who wants to do anything around mental health and wellness. So we work in that spaces. I also started sort of my own social enterprise about 4 years ago. I was with AKU before this. So that is when I started actually feeling and understanding firsthand the mental health toll that a startup or starting in a space that is a challenging one, what it means for the founder. I was also requested to come to the American Psychiatric Association meeting last year as a keynote speaker to talk about putting together a mental health startup, especially as related to me being a woman. And when I started looking at evidence, basically all I could get was the mental health toll for founders, with like staggering figures, like 87% of founders struggle with one or some form of mental health illness. 70% suffer from anxiety, about 60% suffer from stress, 40% feel lonely. I mean, just staggering numbers. So I think it's so integral that we address this and talk about this with vulnerability, with transparency, with honesty, with authenticity. Stigma बहुत ज़्यादा है, Pakistan especially, but all over the world. There's so much stigma around mental health issues that nobody wants to talk about it. Men especially have a harder time talking about it because they feel that they will be judged when they talk about some of the challenges that they're going through. So I'm very happy, Taha, that you're with us, and then Sameer will be joining us as well, because I do think that it's so important. I mean, women feel more comfortable having these conversations, but also that men should talk about this. So Taha, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about your startup, but especially your struggle, because life happened to you during your startup journey, and it happened to you twice, and it happened to you in a very challenging and difficult way. So talk to us about that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ayesha, for that. So my name is Taha. I'll give you like a little background so you understand where I'm coming from and what I'm doing. So my background has always been in computer sciences. I have also studied communication and design. And I've been in the fitness industry for the past almost 16, 17 years, since that's how long it's been since I've been training myself. Now in 2017, I got diagnosed with cancer for the first time. And this is when I really started diving deeper into understanding why whatever happened to me, because I thought that I was the healthiest and the happiest. But that was not true. But during my journey, while I was trying to understand the science, I found this massive gap in the industry where there was no empathetic or compassionate coach who could help me where I was at, right? So I decided to dive deeper into studying the science behind nutrition, fitness, health, wellness. And since then, I've amassed almost 20 plus certifications in fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, habit-based coaching, and behavior coaching. Now, in 2022, I realized that I can't really be there with everyone and work with people one-on-one. So I started building a company around that. Because of my expertise in tech, I thought, why not build something that is scalable beyond 20, 30 people? And that's Caloris. So Caloris is an AI-powered nutrition coaching assistant that is personalized, that can give you more accurate advice on like, what you're doing, why you're doing, what kind of foods you're eating. And we're also building Pakistan's first food database, and we're also onboarding cafes and restaurants. The idea is to make nutrition simple and transparent for people, and also make it in a way that is scalable to millions and millions of people. Last year, I was building my startup. Everything was going pretty well. I had built a whole team. And then in April, I was at a startup event on 27th, came back, I started experiencing some pain, and I had a doubt. I knew that there was something off. So I did my physical scan again, and I realized that there was another cyst. 2 days later, I went to the doctor, got my ultrasound done, and I realized that, okay, my cancer has come back. And that was the end of my startup, because the co-founder back then, she couldn't lead it, and then I had to step away from everything. The entire team that I had built, of course, it got disbanded, of course. So yeah, it's been a roller coaster of a journey for me, and I'm here to just talk about everything that I've learned over these years.
So Taha, I'm going to ask you because I think that's important. We keep talking about illness and health issues and burnout and stuff, and yet 93% of startup founders say that we will do it again, right? We know that 99% of startups fail. And you feel burnout and you stressed, and then they feel that we'll do it again. You were diagnosed with cancer twice, and yet you're here, and yet you did it again. What is that key element that makes you bounce back and that makes you say, I'll keep going?
A lot of people will be thinking that it's my motivation, but it's not. I think it's my why. It's my purpose. So over the last 7-8 years, I have realized, how big the gap there is. And since then, no one has really stepped in and tried doing what I'm doing. So I think I'll have to do it myself. I'll have to build this system, this thing.
Right.
So it's not even like, building a startup. It's the impact that I'm aiming for. I want to help people become healthier, happier, and I want to make nutrition simple. I don't want to gatekeep it behind a $500 paywall.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this, right? It is very simple. It is a basic right. Everyone should know what nutrition is and how to get healthy.
Yeah.
And I think that's my why, and I think this is why I keep bouncing back.
Yeah.
And yeah, just to make it simple.
So, and that's so integral that, even when patients come to me and they sort of want to go on further and they keep asking me, what should I do? And I will always say, find your purpose. What is your purpose? What is bigger than you that drives you? Because once you have that, then a lot of, the skirmishes, the hurdles and stuff, you're able to sort of bounce back from.
Absolutely.
Vladimir, you were just telling me in the speaker's lounge that you have a startup and your co-founder is your husband, and you have a 1-year-old child. Correct. Between the two of you. So, I've been married a very long time, 25 years plus. You stop counting after a while. And a lot of people here know my husband too, who keeps going from one new thing every 5 years to another. So automatically, that in itself, that relationship is not necessarily me. It's got its ups and downs, but you have a co-founder in that relationship and a child. So tell us about how do you manage that? Tell us about sort of the emotional wellness struggles around that composition.
Sure. Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's really awesome to be here, and especially that Catalyst Lab and Disrupt decided to bring this topic on the stage. I think it's super important. Maybe if you allow me, I'll absolutely get to that topic, but just a little bit why I also decided to join for this panel. Now it's been nearly 7 years that I've been living here in Pakistan and building Neem, not 7 years, but let's say last 3 to 2 years. But before that, I was working with hundreds of founders in Central Eastern Europe and also a little bit around the London area. And one of the things, so we were working with them in scaling their businesses and the usual stuff, right, the growth. And I was sort of being a bridge for them to investors and ecosystem. And one thing that was, for me, was really formative was that, and really surprising, is that when they came to me and we had our one-on-ones, and I'm talking about serious founders here, a lot of them were serial tech founders, they wanted to talk not about the growth and marketing and investors. They wanted to talk about themselves, and they wanted to talk about the roller coaster they're going through, and the fact that they don't have many spaces, safe spaces, to actually really open up and talk about what they feel, how they feel. And a lot of them were men, actually. Majority of them were men. So we started looking into, like, who is doing what about this topic? Like the mental wellness. There were not even words really about this, right? And there was not much out there, I tell you. And then we started looking in Silicon Valley and the sort of more developed ecosystem. There was here and there, but it was very exclusive, very expensive. So we decided to, I didn't share this, but we decided then to form an organization which is called the Future Farm, and it raises awareness about the toll especially for founders. What does it take to decide to go on this journey in life? If you want, you can look it up. There's a lot of sort of shared stories. We also had some Pakistani founders on it. It's a global podcast, and they talk very vulnerably about I would say the harder side, the dark side. But so it's a global phenomena. Now to your question, sorry, it's just to frame it a little bit. So now I'm building a business of my own with, I have two co-founders. One of them indeed is my husband. We actually don't know a scenario of not working together, so we are quite scared about how would that work for us. I think for us, I would say it's an essential to our overall well-being as a unit, the fact that we have each other's back. So we every day, the 24/7 that we spend together side by side, especially building the business, I don't even know how we would do it otherwise. And I tell you examples, like when we go through some of the more challenging times, whether that's a cash flow crunch, whether that's investor fundraising. I mean, those are some of the really tough moments for founders. I have someone by my side with whom I can be brutally honest. He knows me, I know him. When I'm 20% there, he can pick up the 80, and of course the third co-founder matters as well in that dynamic. But I think that brutal honesty is sort of an enabler for us to function. Of course, then there's a lot around, and we could talk, this is a topic on its own, like how do you not bring this home? Of course you bring this home. Of course you bring business home. So we talk a lot and we work on our boundaries as well. So that's something which we are nearly religious about. Of course, sometimes it slips. I keep speaking about this on different panels, but I'll share it here as well. It's a new platform. One of the concrete things that we did for us is that we have a number of WhatsApp groups. So we have one for the very loving staff as partners. We have one as co-founders, which is literally called VN, as Vladimira and Najeeb Inc. That's the co-founder. And then we have one for the, hey, who's buying the groceries? The language and the boundaries that we sort of use is just so different. Like, right. You can have, go too much into the loving stuff, but you can have a moment of like, I really miss you. And at the same time, what the hell did you do in that investor call? And that can happen literally within like 2 minutes. But I'm saying that because the boundary is super important for us. Sure. With Maya now on board, it's a whole new level. And I think that awareness, we can talk about maybe in different question, but like the awareness of what it takes for parents to be part of the startup tech ecosystem and build businesses is it's a whole new thing. I would say maybe just one thing. The goal for all of that to somehow make sense and work is build a system. It's not a willpower, it's a system. And I think that is also an underlying sort of message for how do we sort of look at mental wealth in general, but that's something that works for us.
Absolutely. It's not something that you can just get on the go. It's not something that you can say, all right, if a problem comes, you've got to plug it into the systems, right? Absolutely. Sharmeen, just before coming here, you shared a quick story of not yours, but somebody who had a a.m. call and then called saying that I've just gone into labor, so can we move this for tomorrow?
Yeah.
And then they said that no, you can take a week off. You've just had your baby, and she said no, I have a deadline. And we talked about work-life balance, which I don't believe, and I don't think that there's any such thing as work-life balance because for all of us here, I think our work is also our life.
Yeah.
So when people say work and life, I'm like, what are you talking about? Our work is as important, integral part of our life. So work, life, or whatever, some sort of integration, I think, is important. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about your journey a little bit, but also that you told me that with BME, you've also now started something that is actually looking at founders' mental health and wellness.
So honestly, I think a couple of days ago we were having this conversation that there is no such thing as work-life balance. It's about life, and that ties into what Taha was saying earlier, that what is your why? If I think very recently, about a year ago, I came to the conclusion that I love working.
Yeah.
So if I love working, then it's not being a workaholic. Why should I complain about something that is something that brings me joy? If it's something that fulfills you, that gives you purpose, then that is your balance.
Yeah.
How you fit other things into it, I think Vladimira put it very beautifully. My co-founder and I, we have multiple groups. We have groups where I lose my temper. I lose my temper more than he does. And we have groups where we speak to our team because we cannot lose our temper there. And then we have our personal groups. Kya acha is weekend ko kya karna hai? And then sometimes we have these conversations where he's like, these days you're only looking at me as CEO Talha and not as your friend Talha.
Right.
So it really helps, having those different hats and categories. So, okay, put your CEO hat off right now. I need to vent on my personal things. So, that really helps. As far as our Founders Resilience Program goes, because of the journey that the two of us have been on for the last 5 years, we've been through parents' illnesses, marriages, divorce. We've been through a lot together. And because of that, it's shaped our journey how, one person has to take the weight one day, the other person has to take the weight the other day. And we realized how, there are days, there was this one day I called Talha and I said, bus, aur nahi kar sakti main.
Yeah.
And he's like, bro, I had that day yesterday. It's okay. I have you, you have me, we'll figure it out. Just take some time today, let's talk about this tomorrow.
Right.
So having that support of, a good co-founder who understands your journey, who knows your family, he is family. Initially, so we used to work in my drawing room raat ke 12-1 baje tak, and my family used to say that this is not sustainable.
Right.
And so that passion is also important, right? To know that your why. And but it does burn you out.
Yeah.
So when we start speaking to other founders over the last few years, we've built, relationships in this community, and we realize that we aren't alone. Sometimes there's imposter syndrome that really me, or sometimes it's just, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And we actually ran some tests on some of the founders. We've been taking them for retreats, and we found that most of them had some level of burnout.
Yeah.
Imposter syndrome is high. People, they feel isolated. They feel isolated from their homes. घर पे ताने मिलते हैं कि हाँ बस तुम काम कर लो. They don't have a social life anymore because people just keep saying, why are you doing this? Do a 9 to 5, come home, you'll have time for your family, you'll have time for everything else.
Yeah.
Why? Why are you doing this to yourself? So they can't even go and vent over there and say that my life is difficult because they say, who asked you to do this?
Yeah.
So building a community of people who understand, who can speak to each other in that language is a goal that we have taken upon ourselves. And honestly, it's not just for everyone that we touch with this program, but for ourselves as well, because it's very validating to know that not only are other people going through this, but we're helping them through the same journey that we have been through as well.
Lovely. Thank you. And thank you, Sameer, for joining us. Sorry we started without you, but I'm glad you're here. So just before you came, I had sort of shared that 99% of startups fail, only 1% succeed. And nobody talks about the 99% of the failures, right? We are always constantly focused on the 1%. And you have talked about that, before you've had this fantastic startup, Social Champ, usse pehle 3 times that there were. So what does that do to a founder, and where did you find that grit to keep going on and sort of even the vision or the thought that nahi kuch succeed hoga to main, I want to stay on this path?
I think, apologies for being late. I think my wife was not feeling well. She had to be admitted. I think great question. I think what Taha and you guys were speaking about the why, right? The purpose of your existence and what you want to live back, give back when you move out, that is very important. You could create many startups. Startups, the fundamental thing is that you don't have to be romantic with your startup idea. If it's not working, quit, start something else, pivot. You shouldn't be ashamed. You shouldn't be worried about what society will think that, I failed in this idea. What will I tell to my mom, dad, that I left my job for the startup, right? So I think in the very start it was very clear to us and my co-founders that we want to have a SaaS product, not a service company. And we need to create an asset that could serve people even if we are not here in the world, right? And that asset can, help a lot of families across, different parts of the world. And when startups do not work out, you get a very good learning from it. You learn from that and you stop repeating those mistakes and you do new mistakes, right? And then you do new others mistakes, right? So you keep doing mistakes and you keep on iterating. And I think that's what startup journey is all about. Even if you think that we are successful right now, which we are not somehow, in our heads, right? We will still do mistakes, right? And we keep on failing and we keep on learning from it. So if your internal why is clear, you're not here just because you want to be mentioned in TechCrunch and Forbes. If that is not your aim is not to impress your friends around there. If there's no peer pressure, you're just doing it because you want to do it and you believe in what you're doing it. You can keep going as far as your bets are there in you. So I think, so the learnings I learned, they somehow turn into inspirational talks, when people ask me, what did you learn? And they invite me to, okay, you failed, okay, tell us how you failed. I'm like, okay. And that turned to an inspirational journey. And then I tell them that, do the mistakes that I haven't done, don't do it, do new ones, save some of your black hair, turning gray. But I think it's very important to figure out what your internal why is, why you're doing it, because it's very easy in your marketing to get your name in TechCrunch. It's very easy to get fame by getting acquisition offer and just accepting it. Everybody will start talking about you got acquired. Nobody will know the terms that you got acquired of, right? It's very easy to play this game. If you're in the system, you would know it's very easy to get yourself mentioned up. But does that satisfy your soul internally? That are you here for that reason or not? That is something that's self-inner reflection. And I think a lot of us are scared to actually do a self-inner reflection when we are alone. That's why in pandemic, a lot of people were not feeling well because they couldn't face themselves. They always found some reason to distract themselves from the world, right? Going on, different events just to distract and fight what they're internally telling about. So yeah.
Thank you, Sameer. And it's like this last thing that you said, again, something that I keep telling people, that reflection and inner reflection is so important. Our culture is not designed to reflect. Yeah. We deflect. We will say, what are the outside factors that are causing problems and stuff. But, if every night before going to bed, just like 2 minutes of, how the day went, what went well, what didn't go well, what could I do differently, what could I do even better, I think just some of that can be game changers, really. We have about 7 minutes left. Again, we were talking about this, and I am always, whenever a topic comes up or a new issue comes up, and, people will say, come, let's have a panel and let's talk about it and stuff. I really feel that this is an opportunity to look at what is it that we can do to build system changes, right? We can have as many talks as possible, hundreds of talks, but if this is where it's ending, then it doesn't matter, right? It's just a hubris and it's all hue and cry. So I'll ask each of you that if you had to think about one system level, policy level shift or change that can be brought into the startup world to take care of the 87% of startup founders' mental health issues. I mean, it's a staggering number. Like, we're talking about, 8 out of 10 struggling with a mental health illness. What might that shift be, and how can we, and at what level should we advocate for that? Vladimir, you want to start?
Sure. Great question. Thank you. And I was actually thinking about it because I think I have a suggestion for the tech community, which is hugely backed by the VC capital. But then I was thinking that actually majority of the entrepreneurs are not VC backed, like they're sustainable business builders, etc. But still, so maybe I'll touch both. I think in the VC backed space, like I really, not just from my own lived experience, but also from all those conversations with founders around the world, the relationship with investors is one of the major drivers of the stress and the challenges for the founders. It is the truth. It can be a very toxic relationship. So one thing that I would want to systemically change is actually educate the investors and put this into their KPIs when they do due diligence on startups and then when they have a portfolio support, that it is part of their systems, that they speak to the founders, they create support ecosystem, it is part of their metric. So the founders' health, founders' well-being, I want the VCs and the investors to understand that the healthy founders build sustainable, healthy companies. I think that would be one that could already drive, I think, significant change.
Absolutely, wonderful.
I'd like to build upon this. You're absolutely right, because when investors do come in, when VCs come in, they profile the founders. They check your CVs, they check your years of experience, they check everything, they do background checks. So in that, because wellness is not just mental health is the effect. Yeah. So if we start preventive measures from the beginning, how many hours a week do you spend at the gym, or do you move? What are your eating habits? How many hours are you averaging of sleep per day? You know, when you go into holistic wellness, and something that does work more in the West, people have designated mental health support systems. So there's no shame in speaking to a therapist because I'm okay. You know, why are you waiting for yourself to be not okay? Because if you know that you are in a high-stress environment, just speaking to someone and saying, hey, I'm in a high-stress environment, can actually prevent longer-term chronic illnesses. So that is what I would say.
Absolutely. And therapy, I keep telling everyone that therapy is for wellness. Therapy is not for illness. It's like getting your personal trainer for your emotional wellness, right? So therapy, absolutely.
Yeah, just like we have, you know, when we're building a startup, we seek help with finances. We seek help with legal stuff. We also should, like, you know, seek help with our mental wellness, our physical wellness, right? Like Sharmeen also said. I think what we can do on a policy level, I think maybe we can make it a part of, like, you know, incubators and accelerators and all of these programs.
Right.
So while they're running and while they're teaching about, like, you know, finances and other stuff, they can also teach the startup founders how to take care of themselves. Because if they don't, then it always catches up sooner or later. Right. And in my case, I think I'm literally an example what happens when you don't slow down, when you don't pace yourself, when you're always after the other milestone, other, like, you know, KPI. And yeah, it is very harmful.
So, I mean, again, you know, if failure is part and parcel, whatever we call failure or struggles and hurdles, then I think it's integral that becomes part of the curriculum, that how do you deal with it? So, you know, you teach about agility, you teach about pivoting, you teach about, you know, shifting focus, you teach about sort of, you know, all of those things that get picked up as soon as possible. Absolutely. But if you don't know it, if you don't have the language for it, you know, it's like I keep telling everyone, we don't even have the language for mental health. Urdu में तो बिल्कुल ही नहीं है. Urdu में तो किसी को पता ही नहीं है क्या लफ्ज़ use होते हैं. So there are no words if you don't have the language. So at least, you know, some sort of mental health literacy, some sort of, like, you know, that gets integrated into curricula, I think would be absolutely beneficial.
I'm sure. And I think we also need to reframe failure and rejection, because that also gives a lot of stress to startup founders. I mean, if you just talk about investors, right? Getting rejected by them gives a lot of stress. And I've been through it recently, a lot. But for me, failure and rejection, I reframe it in a way that it's just redirection for me. So if one doesn't work out, there are always other options for me.
So how can we?
So I think that helps me really, you know, get in tune with my emotions and feelings, and I know exactly what it is.
Absolutely. So how can we reframe failure into an opportunity?
If I just made just one experience just to top this up, because I think, yes, the experience of being rejected, right, and building and raising in Pakistan is in no way an easy endeavor. But also the other thing, so I tell you, so we are experienced founders and we are raising funds from an investor from Singapore. This literally happened. Yeah. And I'm on the call with our head of finance and my other co-founder. We're raising funds, and this investor, it was a guy in his 40s, started being so rude to us. I could not comprehend what was happening on the call. He literally started using abusive language. We were all so shocked. Literally, we freeze. My CFO, well, head of finance, his chewing gum dissolved. And so we cut the call, and we were looking at each other of what just happened. And I think what was super important, why I'm sharing this experience, is that it is not just about rejection. I think what is important is also that we understand that we don't have to take all that. That we have a value system, we have boundaries. So I think that self-reflection and understanding why this is important for me, and in situations like this, how can I react and even protect myself, I think is super important.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sameer, the last couple of minutes. So you have the showstopper comment for this.
I think one thing that startups need to learn is learn to ask for help. And we really, we assume that the world revolves around us and mentors will come to us to help us because we are running an amazing startup. We are the CEO, we are the co-founders. So if you go to a conference like 92Disrupt, all the mentors will come to us, tell us, oh, you're running a startup, you're an amazing person. But I think the problem is that, sometimes we feel so, you could say, insecure in asking for help that we think that we might just waste 2-3 months on it rather than get a mentor who would help us to get this solved in a 1-2 hour, 3-hour talk, right? Just to share an example, I reached out to Guy Kawasaki when he texted me, tweeted online, did anybody read my book? I said, I read your book. I asked for help. He started talking to me, invited me to Silicon Valley. I applied for US visa. I was single. I was Khan. Never traveled outside Pakistan. Got rejected. I was so broken. I shared this with Jahara that, my visa got rejected. And she was at the Dubai airport. On that airport, she was mid-air. She wrote an email to US consulate that this guy represents Pakistan. I vouch he will come back. How can you not support him? We have deal with you guys. And then I got a VIP call. I got the visa. And if I hadn't asked that to Jahan, if I had hidden somewhere in the corner and didn't do it, it would have never happened, right? And that happened, and there's countless examples. Then I figured out, you know what, you can just reach out to anyone. And I used to read books. I reached out to SEO authors. They gave me time. They got on call. And I was just wondering that somewhere in Pakistan you're sitting, you cannot say that the government is not doing anything. You cannot complain about anything. You have access to everyone. And then I learned something else, that you need to follow 5-6 times to somebody. Yeah. You just can't just email once and take one follow-up and then you'll think that, okay, I can't follow up again, that person will feel bad. The magic happens when it's the 6th or 7th follow-up. So again, learn to ask for help. That's my ending question. But again, not just humans, the one who created us. We assume that he knows some Arabic and then maybe he will understand that Arabic words. Just ask your crazy wishes, your crazy desires. It's not it's not in the hands of angels. They can laugh on your wishes, but it's the one who created you who will fulfill those dreams. So keep dreaming, keep doing good stuff. May the best be with you.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. We'll wrap up. Thank you.